As the world starts to slowly return to normal, we're now starting to get some dates for some new geek goodness. And we're going to talk about that today on today's episode of the Geek Watch Podcast.
This is the Geek Watch Podcast with Brian Hatcher and Mandy Petrie.
Greetings, Geek Watchers, and welcome to episode 115 of the Geek Watch Podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, and with me, as always, Geek Watch's own resident geek goddess, Mandy Petrie.
Hello, Brian.
Of course, the moment you came in, I had to whip out the iPad and show you the trailer that just came up today for What If.
Wow.
Lots of nifty new stuff.
August 11th cannot come soon enough.
Yeah, well, I mean, we finally do have a date now for it. So they announced it's going to start August 11th, and we got to see a few more of it. I think they focused a bit more on the Chadwick Boseman What If T'Challa Became Star-Lord episode. We got to see a lot more of that, which was awesome. Of course, this was the last thing that he did with Marvel before he passed away. It is actually Chadwick Boseman's voice, and I can't wait.
Yes,
it looks like it's going to be great, and it's going to have that same kind of humor that Guardians of the Galaxy is known for. I can't wait. I mean, but there's like a ton of stuff. Of course, we got Howard the Duck, and finally, and we're going to get some Marvel zombies and a bunch of other stuff. So I'm like totally looking forward to that.
Eric Killmonger. Yeah. He is one of those characters, and including Yondo, that, the fandom has just screamed out, we want more. And we are getting that in this What If, beautifully. Cannot wait.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be wonderful to see. And that's something I did want to talk to you about today, since you are caught up on Loki at this point, and we've already seen the penultimate episode of Loki, and there's going to definitely be a lot to talk about. I did want to show you something that I picked up today, and I'm going to reach behind me to the bookcase for this.
Okay.
But I got a couple of new Funko Pops.
I'm looking at Funko Pops here. Guillermo del Toro and Bram Stoker.
Yes.
Wow.
So I picked those up at Books A Million. The Bram Stoker one is a Books A Million exclusive, and he had the Guillermo del Toro. They only had one of them, and the box is a little bit damaged, you might notice on the bottom.
I see, yes.
And so I was able to get that at like a 10% discount.
Amazing. I mean, these are some true genre icons here.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're going to be coming. Yeah, they're going to be coming out with a Vincent Price one here soon. And I'm definitely picking that one up. But but I did want to talk a little Funko Pop stuff, because I don't have a lot of Funko Pops, or I would say a lot that varied and different ones. I started out with Call of Cthulhu. I started out collecting Cthulhus. And I've got pretty much all of them, except for there's one that is called Nerd Cthulhu. It's just the regular Cthulhu with a pair of taped glasses. Which
it's adorable.
Adorable, but it's $120 now to buy one, and I'm like, it's not that adorable. Yeah, I'll just buy a regular Cthulhu and put glasses on it myself. So
wow.
But that started my thing, because I decided, well, I'm just going to do Cthulhu, and that's going to be it. And
that wasn't it.
No, it didn't. I haven't completely jumped the Funko shark yet. I did get all the Stephen King ones that I could get. I got all the Edgar Allan Poe ones.
Oh.
It started to migrate into different icons that I wanted to pick up. So I don't think I'm going to go all in on collecting Funko Pops, because that's going to be...
Yeah.
Well,
most of mine I haven't actively gone after. Many of them were gifts from people, some of my favorite characters, and also the ones that I got in Loot Crate. And I don't believe I've ever actively gone after one myself, but I have several, and they're in my Doctor Who and Firefly and Walking Dead, all my loves. But yeah, I don't actively go after pops.
I don't really either, which I've paid the price for in some cases, because I had considered collecting the Universal Monsters Funko Pops.
Oh yeah.
But
I hope they're in black and white.
They are in black and white. There are black and white variants, but basically what happens with Funko Pops is when they first come out, you can get them between $10 to $20, and then it's not a permanent. They move on to something else. There's only like a few month window for any Funko Pop to be out, and then once that happens, then the price shoots up because you can't get them anymore. And so if I want to spend $70 a piece, I can start collecting the Universal Monsters. They're neat 10 to 20. They're not that important once they get over $50 to $60. So, but that's the thing about Funko Pops, because it does really play into pop culture, into
and
geek culture.
It appeals to everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have thought the Golden Girls would become the pop icons that they were, that they have become, and people love them, and we're screaming for Funkos of them, and then they came out. So
it's not exactly Rule 34, but it's that and the blue check mark on social media is how you know you've made it. If they make a Funko Pop out of you, I mean, you're famous. And when they make the Funko Pops, they do it for a few months or so, and they don't come back normally, but sometimes they'll bring one back. Since we have the second season of Good Omens, they're reissuing those Funko Pops.
Okay.
So you get another crack at them.
Yeah.
It's a good way to kind of get into collecting something, but I'll tell you where it becomes a disaster. If you own a small to medium game store, or even if you're like a larger box store, selling Funko Pops is a nightmare. And as somebody that in the early 90s owned a game store, I know a lot about what goes on behind the scenes when it comes to, game stores and card stores and that culture. And one thing, especially if you deal with cards like Magic cards or Pokemon, or you deal with comic books or things like that, the biggest problem you're going to run into starting out is going to be controlling clutter. Because things get cluttered really quickly. I mean, if you go into your average game store and you look behind the cash register, you're going to see piles of paper, boxes. It is a tidal wave that you're constantly having to fight against. And the problem with Funko Pops are, if you're buying one, you know which ones you want and which ones you don't. Imagine trying to have to sell them. Right. Now, if you're Amazon, that's fine. You can get them at a huge discount because you're buying them in bulk, and the ones you don't sell can wind up in a landfill somewhere. You don't care. But, I mean, even if you're a box store like Books A Million, you go in there, they're all over the place. They tend to spread out. But if you see these like game stores that sell Funko Pops, they are inundated with those things. They're worse than tribbles. They just continue to... The thing about it...
feeding them, they'll keep breeding.
Yeah, I mean, eventually you just run out of room for all of them because you're not going to sell every Funko Pop. I know which one I want to buy, but if somebody wants to sell it to me, how many Funko Pops from all over the place do they have to buy
to get that one?
To get that one that I want, and then they're stuck with the rest of them. It's a massive disaster. And I can't tell you how many stores that I've gone to, the game stores, that sell Funko Pops, and they're just all over the place. If I were to ever lose my mind and decide to open up a game store again, I would not carry Funko Pops. I like having the ones that I have, and when Vincent Price comes rolling along, I'm probably going to have to pick that one up. But eventually, even I am going to have to say, I don't have room in my house for more Funko Pops. Yeah, there's got to be a stop somewhere. But that's the problem you run into is, well, once they pull you in, then what do you do? But I'm hoping eventually to break this habit and to go back to the normal bad habits like buying games on Kickstarter. So going back a little bit, because we talked about the trailer, now we're starting to see a lot of these dates coming up for all kinds of great nerdy stuff, which I'm looking forward to. August, it's going to start out with What If on the 11th, and then the 22nd is the first episode of the last season of The Walking Dead. That'll be the 22nd. And so we'll have that going. And then
the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end, which they're going to split it into 2 half seasons like they did before. The first half starting on the 22nd. And of course, today we get Black Widow. Black Widow starts today. So I am going to attempt to see it this weekend. I didn't know what plans you have if you're planning on trying to catch it.
I hadn't had any plans. I'm not sure what's going to go on with that. But so tonight's it's starting in theaters at midnight, or are they doing a big thing like that?
Actually, I believe it started at 5. So there's it's probably running up at Regal and a few other theaters.
So no big long lines and people dressed up like many a year ago, once upon a time.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know what it's going to look like. Marvel is hoping that this is going to be a $100 million opening, which, again, they're really going to be looking heavily to see how well this does in the theaters.
And now is it opening on streaming on Disney Plus as well? Okay.
It is.
Kind of like Mulan.
Yeah. There are going to be issues with Black Widow because it's just a movie length, and we have been feasting on these 6 to 8 episode episodic television and really getting deep dives, which obviously you can't do in a movie. If people have gotten to the point where they're going to feel comfortable going back to the theater and, getting... And that's the irony of it. It's like we're talking about movies, but we're talking about, well, those are sort of like snacks, the big meals are on television, and it's weird to say that, but it's the truth. I am going to try to catch it this weekend. There's, life is all that stuff that happens while you're making other plans, but I want to do that. And if we do, then of course next week we can talk about it. There have been some reviews. I've been avoiding them. I know that reviews have been mixed to some degree. Well, that's definitely something we will talk about next week. But you said you've already seen the episode 5 of Loki, so you're completely caught up at this point. So I did want to talk to you about the series so far. And so, we do have to give a warning to everybody who's listening. If you haven't seen any of the episodes of Loki up to episode 5, we are going to start dipping into spoiler territory. So, and if you haven't seen it, what are you doing here now? Why aren't you watching it? Go watch it, put this on pause, go watch it, and then come on back. So what do you think about Loki so far?
Oh, I'm loving it. Just like, all the other Marvel shows exceeded my expectations. I love how vastly different each of these TV shows have been from each other in tone and look, in acting, and learning everything about the time agency. It's been so much fun, and their aesthetics, and the little sun little thing that is kind of like the icon.
Miss Minutes.
Miss Minutes. Oh gosh, I love her. She's a little clock, not a sun. Sorry, I apologize. She's so adorable, and she's so like 1950s mascot, like Speedy. Plop plop fizz fizz, and I feel like this last episode, I feel like everyone, all the actors, everyone on set, they were building up for this moment. And this is what they were most excited about, was this 10 minutes on screen of this beautiful conglomeration. They're like, here it is. This is it. This is going to be it. And I just loved it.
I've been really impressed with the show so far. As somebody who knows a little bit about the comics, it's awesome to see all the Easter eggs. My favorite Easter egg from this last episode had to be the Thanos copter. I never thought I would see the Thanos copter. And that's a deep, deep, deep cut. It's
really?
It goes back way, way back to Spidey Super Stories, which if you don't know what that is, because you're not old and decrepit like I am, back in the day of public television, there came a time when you got to be a little bit too old to watch Sesame Street, so you went to the electric company.
Oh, electric company.
Are you familiar?
I know of it. I never got to witness it or anything. But you're young and you're young and vibrant. So it was a little bit before your time, but that's the reason why my first Dracula was Morgan Freeman. It's like, it wasn't Bela Lugosi, it was Morgan Freeman. Aww.
And so that was my introduction. And of course, Rita Moreno, and it was a wonderful show. But one part of it also was there was a skit that they would do where they had Spider-Man. Marvel allowed them to use Spider-Man on the electric company, and it was done very much like a comic book. They would do these as panels, and you'd see sketching, and then you'd go to sort of the live action.
Oh, well, that's neat. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my first introduction to live action Spider-Man. Of course, I'd been a Spider-Man fan since I was like 6. And so I was a huge fan of Spider-Man, and so seeing him on the electric company was cool. What was interesting about it was, of course, this was a show that was promoting reading. And so anytime Spider-Man was going to say something or think something, you read the thought bubbles. Spider-Man never really spoke.
It's like the book Who Censored Roger Rabbit. Instead of the tunes, they spoke in speech bubbles.
So Spider-Man would do that.
Neat.
To promote reading, obviously. And as a cross to that, Marvel Comics put out a Spidey Super Stories comic book, which was geared to younger readers. There was this one comic that had Thanos in it. and he was trying to get the cosmic cube, and he was flying around in a big yellow helicopter because, this is geared to younger readers, and it was goofy like that. Here's Thanos, but we got the Thanos copter. You actually saw the Thanos copter. I looked at it, I was like, this is nuts. But this last episode was full of Easter eggs and stuff that you just would not expect to see at all. It's like, did they actually do Frog Thor? Yes, they did. Yes. They actually did Frog Thor.
And alligator Loki. And I expect, next week everyone to be carrying around an alligator with horns on it.
I'm sure other people caught this too, but when the big fight happened, I guess we call him Old Man Loki. Classic Loki. When he created the doppelgangers, Kid Loki tossed Gator Loki at someone, alligator Loki. The first thing that popped in my head is, hey, let's get help.
Let's get help.
That was the first thing. It's like, let's get help is a whole different story when one of you is an alligator. Let's get help. It hits different. It just hits different. And when alligator Loki bites off President Loki's hand.
Yes. President Loki that was the poster, that was the what we got, so we've been waiting 5 episodes for President Loki. See, I watch it with subtitles. That's why I know to call him Classic Loki. And the whole time I was watching it, and I was like, he looks so familiar. He has this very Jeffrey Rush look to him. And I realized that he had played the Scarlet Pimpernel in the late 90s. And that's where I saw him from. So he's, very classically trained and perfect,
Yeah, Richard E. Grant, who is, as far as geek culture goes, especially if you watch Doctor Who, he was the Great Intelligence, or at least he was the avatar for the Great Intelligence.
Okay.
And he also was the Ninth Doctor, kinda. Back in the days before there was any idea that Doctor Who was ever going to come back.
Sylvester McCoy or Paul McGann kind of territory.
After Paul McGann.
Okay, all right.
So what happened was...
After the movie.
After the movie, and they're like, well, this is never going to come back. Let's go ahead and do an online flash animation Doctor Who.
Oh.
And Richard E. Grant was the Doctor.
Okay.
Who basically, he was tooling around in his TARDIS with the Master, who was trapped in a robot body. So it was like a robotic Master. Okay. So they fought this villain known as the Shulka, I think. So I know people are screaming at me. That's not how it's pronounced. And I'm sorry. I forget. But Scream of the Shulka was the name of these episodes. And I think you can still find them online. You can probably find them on YouTube. But these were like flash animations.
Oh, neat.
And so he became the Ninth Doctor until, of course...
The non-canon doctors. There's several non-canon doctors, so hey.
Yeah,
I think even Rowan Atkinson is a non-canon doctor.
Yes, the Children in Need one. Yes, where he was going to retire. Yeah, and it was the Red Nose Day special.
Yep.
I remember it, written by Stephen Moffat. It was like the first thing that he wrote for Doctor Who.
Excellent.
So yeah, that was that he's a non-canonical Ninth Doctor, and so of course he's always been very much into geek culture, and seeing him play Loki, he was note perfect as classic Loki for sure.
And he rocked that horrible spandex. He did it justice, and not since Christopher Reeve has anyone rocked the spandex so well.
What was interesting about that episode is, and I've heard this here and there about people saying, the whole President Loki thing in this fight, it's like, well, what was the point of all of that? It's just sort of, well, number one, it was fun. So enjoy your fun. But the main thing about it, and I think some people may not have caught this, but when you first saw President Loki in the trailer, we assumed that this was the Loki we'd been following because he certainly acted like the Loki we were used to. But what was great about that scene was when you see our Loki looking at all this, seeing somebody acting the way that he used to act, and was acting...
And the face palm,
Yeah, he's
that was the whole point. That one small little moment was everything, that was his arc.
Without coming out and having to say it, you're like, there's been some character growth. And that is one thing about the show that some people's reactions to it that have me a little bit frustrated is It seems like there's been a little bit of complaints from some people about the pacing of some of the episodes in the show. It's like, nothing really happened. They just sat around and talked, and I'm like, oh, but it was so good. There was so much good talking going on, and there was a lot of great character development going on. And for me, it's not that I think that because people are complaining about this, Marvel's going to suddenly go, well, we got to stop doing that. We need to make things more bang, pow, zoom. We have good storytellers at Marvel at this point, and they're going to continue to be good storytellers.
If we didn't have that, if we didn't have those episodes with the talking, we wouldn't care about Mobius. We wouldn't care that he ever gets a jet ski. If he doesn't get a jet ski, my heart's going to be broken, and everyone else, their heart's going to be broken. If we didn't have those long conversations, we wouldn't care about Evie, and we wouldn't shed a tear when we see that she was taken from Asgard when she was just a kid. And we have to have that, and we have to build that rapport quickly. It's those tricks to get you to root for the right person.
Yeah.
Yes.
These shows aren't going to be like the movies, where the movies you do kind of have to rush characterization because you don't have that kind of time. The TV shows do allow you to develop these characters, which is awesome, and that's what I want. And we've been getting it, but again, it gets to be a little frustrating sometimes when you have people who are jumping up on YouTube or on Facebook and playing the role of the critic, and basically they're giving their opinions, which there's nothing wrong with giving your opinion, but don't say you're a critic, say you're somebody who's giving your opinion on something.
What is his name? U.S. agent. What's his name?
Oh, Walker.
Okay, Walker. Everyone, throwing a fit. Walker, he's horrible. We hate him as Captain America. Of course you do. You don't know where he's going. We nerds, look, we know this is going to be U.S. agent. We know what he's going to become. It's like he's doing everything right to not be Captain America, so we know that. But, the people who don't know that don't realize what's happening.
Yeah, that's the problem with critique at this point, because you have a lot of people online who are giving their quote-unquote critical responses to things. And they get things confused in a sense where they don't like what this character is doing, but it's part of the story, but they just immediately assume that it's because the story is bad, that the writing is bad. And, it's like, I hate Walker. It's bad screenwriting. It's like, no, it's perfect screenwriting. You're supposed to hate this guy because there's conflict in the story and things are happening that you don't like. That's the point of the story.
And you got like the villains that you love to hate, like early Loki, and then you've got the villains that you just hate, like Dolores Umbridge, and you will never have any redeeming qualities for her ever. And that's good writing.
Exactly. You're feeling exactly the way you're supposed to feel. But I'm seeing some of these reviews, and in some cases, it's very much people who have received steak and are complaining that it isn't pizza.
And
it's like, I wanted pizza. I'm like, well, there's plenty of places where you can get pizza, but we're having filet mignon right now, so enjoy that. And the thing about it is, don't get me wrong. I think that the vast majority of the viewership is not in that boat. I believe that they know exactly how good the show is, and they're enjoying it. Of course, you have like a handful of people who are complaining, and those are the people that you hear because they make the most noise. I'm not worried that Marvel is going to listen to that handful of people. I think they've been doing this for so long. They know what they're doing. They know that the story is good, and they're going to continue with it. It's just weird to me what people seem to fixate on. The big thing between Sylvie and Loki. There's people going, no, I don't want to see that. This is like incest on crack.
Oh, the romance? Yeah.
The romance thing.
It feels that way because that's what people are used to seeing between a male and a female on screen.
Right.
They're not looking at this as the friendship that is.
Like a deep friendship.
Deep
it's like
friendship that they've never had before.
Well, the thing about it is when you have a relationship between a man and a woman, obviously, until sex gets involved, none of it counts, right? That's how it's supposed to work. And I got my sarcasm fingers up, and I know you can't see them, but by God, I'm squeezing them hard. You have that situation where people are looking at this and they're like, but I don't want this to turn into a sexual relationship. And it's like, you're just assuming that it's going to, because you can see this heteronormal path for them to go through. And so you just kind of assume that that's what's going to happen. And nobody, well, I'm not going to say nobody because some people are shipping Mobius and Loki. But a lot of people aren't complaining about their friendship because it's two dudes. So, I mean, obviously that's not going to happen. But even after we went ahead and said that Loki is bi, so in a real sense, he's basically finding himself. And he's doing that obviously through Sylvie, but also there have been so many times through this episode where he's had to confront who he is as a person. To me, that's fascinating. The big villain that Loki has been facing up to this point has been himself. And it was only at that moment, I mean, we're going straight into Joseph Campbell for this one, but that's why episode 5 was so important, because until he was able to conquer himself, he wasn't ready to cross the threshold and face what's ultimately going to be who he's going to have to fight. For people who've read the comics, it's pretty obvious where they're going with this. I'm not going to say, because if you're somebody who doesn't read the comics and you don't watch trailers like I don't watch trailers, I wouldn't want to ruin that for anybody. So it's just I just happen to know from the comics, it's like, okay, this we have this character and we got that character and this thing happened. Yeah, this is definitely who we're dealing with.
This is next.
This is definitely next. I definitely am looking forward to what they're going to wind up doing with episode 6, because they wrap everything up mostly. Obviously, if you know who they're going to be facing, this character is going to be somebody that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to be dealing with in the future. This may be more setup than it's going to be necessarily a full resolution.
Okay.
It's going to set some things up for stuff down the road, obviously.
Phase 4, whatever we're in.
Yeah,
Whatever
phase 4. So
like Love and Thunder and Into the Strange Universe. What is it? Doctor Strange?
and the multiverse
of Madness, yeah.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, and
Fantastic Four.
Well, Fantastic Four, that we'll just do this as an aside, because when Kevin Feige was on the red carpet last week for Black Widow, they asked him about Fantastic Four, and he says, well, don't expect that anytime soon.
Oh, I thought they had... Oh, Blade's one. I thought I had seen the 4 symbol on their thing. Okay.
I mean, they're definitely prepping it. They want to have that come out like gangbusters. But as of right now, there are no real plans for it. They haven't cast anybody. There's a lot of fan casting going on because that's what we do.
Every single one of them is John Krasinski and Emily Blunt. Every single one of them.
Yeah, which I have no problem with. They would be amazing. But as of right now, they haven't even started anything with Fantastic Four. And they've got a lot of other stuff they got to deal with. We still have Spider-Man coming up, and so there's a lot to be developed up at this point, plus the fact that they're having to repair all the damage that COVID has done to the movie industry at this point. We talked about on the podcast about Mulan being an experiment, but Black Widow is going to definitely be an experiment at this point. They have prepped things at Disney to be ready for a situation if it develops where everything that they make movie-wise gets pushed out on Disney Plus. They're ready for it. They're making sure that whatever happens, they have a contingency. They're prepared for it. And I think a lot of what happens this weekend is going to say a lot about what goes on, not just Disney, but everything else. I mean, even Warner Brothers with Dune, which... For me, Dune is not a film you sit at home and watch. This is a type of film that what I want to do is go and drive to Columbus and see it on
IMAX.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I mean, it's definitely the type of film that you want to have that big theater experience, assuming that it's going to be available. But really what happens with Black Widow is going to determine how they handle films from this point forward. I mean, one thing that the theaters have going for them is if you want to see Black Widow in 3D, you'll be able to see it in the theaters. Yeah, this weekend is going to be something to keep our eyes on. They're hoping this is going to be a $100 million film. And if it doesn't do so well, like I said, it's not going to be like the end of the world. And believe me, I know, I've seen it. We've all seen it at this point. But how well it does this weekend is going to be really telling as far as how they deal with movies from this point forward. All eyes are on Black Widow, and that's a lot of pressure to put on a film for sure, especially with everything that's been going on over the last over a year at this point. All I can say is I am hoping for the best. And so with that said, we come to the end of episode 115 of the Geek Watch podcast. Thank you for listening, and tune in next week for the latest in geek news and views with the Geek Watch podcast. For Mandy Petrie, this is Brian Hatcher, reminding all the geeks out there, we're all geeky about something. Be proud of yours. See you next time. Thank you for listening to the Geek Watch podcast. If you enjoyed this program, don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred platform and share this podcast on your social media. For links to all the ways you can listen to the Geek Watch podcast, as well as leave comments and suggestions, visit our website at geekwatch.net. The Geek Watch podcast is a Hanging J production.